Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about why I ride an Indian motorcycle. So yesterday after work I went over to downtown, and as I was heading back I pull up at the stoplight and there's this guy. He's on a Indian Chieftain, and I pull up next to him and I'm like, hey, nice motorcycle. And he looks over and his eyes are huge. And he goes, wow, another Indian. He goes, I've never seen anyone else ride one of these. And I'm like, yeah, you really won't. So he tells me, hey, I'm heading to this bar down here. You want to go have a drink? I'll buy you a drink. And I'm like, all right, I'll go. So I end up sitting at the bar with this guy, and his name was Tom. And Tom, if you're watching, thanks for watching. But, you know, he starts telling me, he goes, I haven't rode a motorcycle in 40 years. And he's like, I started doing some research, and he's like, after all my research, I just found, he's like, these Indian motorcycles, they don't break down. They're just so much better built than the Harleys. And I told him, I'm like, yeah, this is my second one, and, you know, I've never had a mechanical failure. I've had a couple cosmetic issues, but, you know, outside of basic maintenance, I've never once had a mechanical failure. And he was just blown away. And we sat there for about an hour talking motorcycles. So, and it really made me want to do a video about why I ride an Indian. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you already know that I'm a mechanic for a living. I am not a motorcycle mechanic, I'm a car mechanic. Been one for 13 years now. So when my first motorcycle ever was a Honda VTX 1300. When I decided to upgrade, naturally I went to the Harley dealer, right? I feel like that's where anyone who rides cruisers kind of naturally goes first to look at a bike. And there was just a lot of things I didn't care for on the Harleys. But, you know, I was like, I want to do my research. In our town, we also have an Indian dealer. So I went over to the Indian dealer, and I started looking at the Indians. And they had all of this stuff that you have to pay extra for on a Harley. Like the lighting was all LED, and, you know, they come with a fabulous seat, and just all this stuff that people pay a ton of money to upgrade on a Harley Davidson, you already got with an Indian motorcycle. All touring models from Indian came with cruise control at that time. Not all Harleys came with cruise control. Now I believe all Softails come with it. I'm not certain on that. But, you know, I'm like, I'm gonna go home and do some research before I go spend all this money on a motorcycle. So I go home and I start doing some research. And through all my research, I couldn't really find any major mechanical issues with the Indian motorcycles. In fact, there's only 2 cases that anyone really knows of catastrophic engine failure on Indian motorcycles. And so why is that? Well, first of all, the primary on these bikes. If you ride a Harley, you know the primary chain tensioners, they tend to fail. And when they fail, you can run into all kinds of issues. Well, on the Indians, the primary is a gear drive. Now, if you've ever ridden an Indian, you know the drivetrain on them's a tad noisier. That is, again, because it's a gear drive. But it's much more robust. The cams on the Indians are gear driven also. Another thing that tends to fail on the Harleys is the cam chain tensioner on the twin cams. The Milwaukee 8s only have one cam. But just a lot of things that I was looking into that Harley has issues with, Indian just seemed to build it mechanically better. So for me, it was an easy decision, because the bikes were roughly the same price. But with all the added stuff that you got, on the Indian, it was a pretty easy decision that for the same price, you were getting a far superior motorcycle. So, after getting it, naturally, you start comparing it to your buddy's motorcycles. And I noticed that my Indian rode so much smoother than all of my buddies' Harleys. Well, a Harley Davidson Street Glide has 2.5 inches of suspension travel. An Indian touring motorcycle has 4.5 inches. When you're riding over bumps, that makes a massive difference. Don't get me wrong, I like the Harleys. You know, naturally, as motorcycle guys, we all bust each other's balls. But I've put 30,000 miles on Indian motorcycles, and I can't really think of any other brand I would rather ride cross-country on. And there's the maintenance standpoint. On Harleys, you have oil, primary oil, and transmission fluid. Well, on the Indians, it's all one fluid. It's all engine oil. So that lowers your maintenance costs. Say on this bike right here, I do my own oil changes. It costs me about $35 to do an oil change on it. That's 5.5 quarts of Kendall motorcycle oil and a filter from Napa. If you go to any motorcycle destination or bike night or whatever, you could see a dozen or more Street Glides and Road Kings, and a lot of times I'm the only Indian there. Like, my bike stands out. When we went to the Smokies last year, we did 3,000 miles, and in that 3,000 miles we encountered one other Indian. One. No, people will often argue, well, Indian doesn't have the dealership network that Harley does. And you are 100% right. But I've never once, while on the road, needed an Indian dealer. Like, I'm sure if I did need one, it would probably be really nice to know there's one, you know, next town over. But it seems like all major cities have them. And how often are you really more than an hour or so from somewhat of a major city? I don't know. And then, you know, people say, well, I don't trust them because I had a Victory and Polaris killed Victory. I could understand that argument. You know, that's a very valid market. It's a very valid argument. But, I don't know, guys. I love Indian motorcycles. This is my second one, and after this one, there will most likely be a third. I'd really like to get my hands on the Challenger because I want to go liquid cooled, because this Thunderstroke 111, it cooks your balls. It cooks them. The heat this thing throws off. I love my bike. I really do. I trust this bike to go anywhere, to get me through anything. Okay, so let's go. Let's go. Sorry guys, battery died in the middle of recording that, so I just had to pull over and put a battery in. So, I was saying that the aftermarket's not as big on the Indian motorcycles. So, if you like to customize your bike, that's kind of a downside. I, for one, I'm not big into customizing bikes. I think it's kind of a waste of money that you will never get back. but I'm not going to knock you for customizing your bike. I mean, it's yours. Do what you want with it. All in all, guys, I just really enjoy Indian motorcycles, and unless Harley does something drastically different, like going to a liquid-cooled engine, I don't see myself buying one. I mean, I like the Harleys, I like the way they look, but I want something different. At the same time, though, I would like to buy an old Road King or an old Sportster. I've got project ideas for both of those, so who knows? Maybe one day on the channel we will have a build series where I do a hardtail Sportster or like a Southern California style Road King or something. But I think that's effectively the end of this video, guys. Thanks for watching. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and bang that subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram, links below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'm out.